Rise of the European Emperor by Taishan Laonyo.
Chapter 171 Confiscated Proceeds and Hush Money. After laughing wildly for a while, Archbishop Rovere, who had come to his senses, no, it was Pope Julius II, waved to a follower beside him and asked, "Sani, did you write down which cardinals voted in favor and which voted against?" Sani was the leader of the citizens group composed of hundreds of Roman citizens, just now, and he was the one who took the lead in making trouble. Moreover, he was responsible for supervising the voting. I wrote it down. Those who voted against were mainly 11 die-hard bishops of the Borgia family and a neutral bishop Elicardo. The others voted in favor. Sani was a very capable subordinate of Julius II, with a very good memory. He could remember a person for a long time based on his appearance. Moreover, he was eloquent and was a very trusted subordinate of Julius II. Well, very good. Go and invite General Schwartz over. After a while, Schwartz came in and saluted Julius II. "Congratulations, Your Holiness." "Ahaha, dear Schwartz, you have made a great contribution to my being able to take this position." Julius II was obviously in a good mood. "This is all due to your planning," Schwartz said modestly. "I will reward that brat Marin. I will also not forget your contribution. Now, Schwartz, I have a task for you. Please give me your orders. Mobilize the soldiers and, under the leadership of my men, surround the residences of some cardinals. Those die-hard opposition bishops who finally voted against it." "Ah. Are you going to kill them?" Schwartz was a little surprised. No, Schwartz, I didn't think of killing them. But today's election, if the process gets out, it will have a bad reputation. So, I plan to put those opponents under house arrest to prevent them from talking nonsense. Remember, their men are not allowed to go out. If there is a need for supplies, I will send people to help them purchase them. Understood. Do other bishops need to be monitored? Well, in addition to the bishops who were originally on the same side as me, send people to monitor the other bishops who were forced to vote for me. However, don't restrict their freedom, I still hope to get their support in the end. Julius II is a true politician, and of course he will not be so reckless as to turn against most of the cardinals of the College of Cardinals. Otherwise, he will not be able to be a stable pope in the future. Therefore, for those cardinals who finally choose to support him, Julius II still hopes to win them over. Only a united Vatican can have the power to act and influence. Schwartz quickly went out and arranged soldiers to surround or monitor the houses of the die-hard opponents and compromisers under the guidance of Julius II's men. At this time, Mavani, the follower who led the team to quarrel with the Borgia family in the main house in Rome, came back excitedly, Master. We are rich." Mavani was a servant of the Rovere family and one of Julius II's most trusted men. Otherwise, he would not have been asked to do such a lucrative job as confiscating property. "Ahem, calm down, Mavani," Julius II said calmly. He knew that the Borgia family was ruthless and crazy about amassing wealth, so he was mentally prepared. "But, Master, this time I seized property worth more than 2 million ducats in the main house of the Borgia family. The gold and silver coins alone are worth 1.2 million ducats. Mavani's face was flushed, and he was obviously still excited. "That's all you can do?" "What? More than 2 million ducats?" Julius II, who originally wanted to pretend to be calm and a master, immediately spit out the water he had just drunk. He was also scared. "Yeah, you don't know. The Borgia family is too rich. At the beginning, I only found the obvious treasury, which only had 200,000 ducats worth of gold and silver coins. But when I accidentally opened a secret room in the backyard, I found that there were 1 million worth of gold and silver coins in it. I was almost blinded by the light. Oh my God. Although I knew that the Borgia family was rich, I didn't expect them to be so rich. 1.2 million in cash. Even my upstart son-in-law would find it difficult to take it out at once. Rodrigo, Alexander VI's name, that bastard, must have done so many evil things to accumulate so much money. Alexander VI could certainly accumulate so much money. Just by poisoning Cardinal Ferrari, he robbed 500,000 ducats worth of gold coins from his home. After Cardinal Chichi died, 150,000 ducats were also robbed. This is only part of it. In recent years, there are not a few cardinals who have been poisoned by Alexander VI and his son. And these cardinals are all wealthy, and no one has a net worth of less than 100,000 ducats. Of course, if they were not wealthy, they would not be targeted by Alexander VI and his son. Add to that the money from reselling bishop positions in various parts of Italy and other parts of Europe, and the wealth accumulated by the Borgia family is worth at least 4 million gold coins. However, the Borgia family did not only have one main house in Rome, but also had many properties in other parts of Italy and their hometown of Spain. Therefore, the money worth 2 million ducats found in the main house of the Borgia family in Rome only accounted for less than half of the Borgia family's wealth. But even this amount scared Julius II. Julius II had also been the behind-the-scenes manipulator of the Roman Curia in the past, and he was also a bit greedy. However, during the 8 years of his puppet Innocent VIII's reign, Julius II only embezzled 200,000 to 300,000 gold coins. It was precisely because of insufficient financial resources that Julius II lost to the wealthy and willful Alexander VI in the papal election in 1492. Alexander VI had spent all the Borgia family's property in order to be elected pope. However, after becoming pope, he not only recovered the cost by madly making money, but also made a lot of money. Of course, this is the difference between Julius II and Alexander VI. Julius II at least had a sense of dignity, even if he was amassing wealth, he was evasive. Alexander VI, on the other hand, was completely shameless, only cared about money. However, now, nearly half of the wealth that Alexander VI and his son had frantically accumulated has fallen into the hands of Julius II. It was also luck. Originally, in history, after the death of Alexander VI, there was Pope Pius III. At that time, Julius II was still in exile abroad. Therefore, under the auspices of the good old man Pius III, the cardinals of the Roman College of Cardinals divided up the property of the Borgia family in Rome, and everyone ate a mouthful of oil. When Julius II returned to Rome, the Borgia family's property in Rome had already been divided up by the cardinals, leaving no soup for Julius II. However, in this life, because Marin provided a large army, he invaded Rome within a few days after the death of Alexander VI. Those cardinals had no chance to take action against the Borgia family, and then, the Borgia family's property in Rome was taken advantage of by Julius II. Julius II thought about how to deal with the huge amount of money worth 2 million ducats for a whole night. The next morning, Julius II, with red eyes, called Mavani, "Mavani, go pick out gold and silver coins from the Borgia family's vault, each worth 5,000 ducats, and take out 90 of them." "Master, what are you doing?" Mavani was a little confused. "I offended most of the cardinals yesterday, so this money today is my apology to them." There were 102 cardinals who participated in the election yesterday, including 11 die-hard Borgia cardinals and the neutral Bishop Elicardo, who had a tough attitude. Although more than 20 of them were originally allies of Julius II, it was unreasonable to give money to others instead of to the allies. Therefore, Julius II simply gave 5,000 gold coins to each of the 90 people. Especially for those cardinals who were forced to vote for him, it was also an apology. In other words, Julius II is paying hush money for yesterday's election hooliganism. After all, that incident was very disgraceful. If it got out, it would have a great impact on Julius II's reputation. The Pope is different from the Emperor and the King. The Emperor and the King rely on royal power and the army, while the Pope relies on divine power and prestige. If the hooligan-like election process yesterday was revealed, it would definitely affect Julius II's prestige. The Pope who lacks prestige has insufficient appeal in Europe. Therefore, as a qualified politician, Julius II decided to take out 450,000 gold coins after thinking all night to shut everyone up. As for the 12 cardinals of the die-hard opposition, Julius II was very decisive and directly sent troops to put them under house arrest. In this way, the possibility of the news being passed on was eliminated. In addition, Julius II also planned to send troops to control the gangsters hired to coerce the cardinals yesterday to prevent the news from leaking out. In short, he wanted to be a great pope with a good reputation. All unstable factors that were not conducive to his reputation must be eliminated in the bud. Chapter 172, Spreading Rumors First. Unlike the process of Juan Datuv sending hooligans to surround the Congress, Julius II directly put the hooligans into the Basilica of St. John Lateran. Therefore, Juan Datuv's incident was known to the world, but the people outside were not aware of Julius II's persecution of the cardinals. After all, Juan Datuv's incident was outside the Congress, and there were many passers-by A and B who witnessed it. But what Julius II did happened indoors, and outsiders didn't know at all. After Schwartz sent troops to control the hooligans who participated yesterday, it was difficult for outsiders to obtain the details of yesterday's papal election. As for the cardinals, except for the 12 who were controlled, the other bishops showed goodwill after receiving Julius II's compensation of 5,000 gold coins. Because they all felt that there were troops monitoring outside their homes. If they reacted improperly, they might end up miserably. Since they were willing to compromise in yesterday's election, it proved that they were all smart people, and they were also not very courageous. Therefore, these cardinals responded in a timely and well-intentioned manner. After all, it was a fact that Julius II became the Pope. They would still have to stay in the Vatican in the future, and going against the Pope was no different from committing suicide. After receiving friendly responses from most of the cardinals, Julius II was relieved. Regardless of whether they were sincere or not, at least, everyone was in harmony on the surface. Moreover, this time, Julius II clearly realized the importance of controlling the army. If he had not led his army into the city and surrounded the Basilica of St. John Lateran, the College of Cardinals might have already determined Bishop Piccolomini as the new pope. However, in the face of force and power, even if the College of Cardinals had made a choice, they were forced to overturn the previous results and re-elect. Therefore, this future God of War Pope finally understood the truth summed up by the great man of later generations that political power comes from the barrel of a gun. In this situation, Julius II decided to steal his son-in-law's 7,000 soldiers. In the previous battle, Julius II found that his son-in-law's 7,000 soldiers were well disciplined and strong in combat. After breaking through the north gate of Rome, the Italian defenders in the city had no resistance in front of these 7,000 German mercenaries. So, Julius II was tempted. With his ambitions, how could he let go of such a powerful army? When Julius II was about to win over Schwarz told him that Marin had already prepared to give him this army. However, the two generals Schwarz and Steindorf would not give it. Because Marin himself is not short of soldiers, but short of generals. Therefore, although this army can be given to Julius II, the generals need to be found by Julius II himself. After all, this will be considered Julius II's own army in the future, and it is best for Julius II to choose the generals himself, so that it is reliable. After the conversation, Schwarz seemed to remember something and said to Julius II, "By the way, Your Holiness, the young master told me before coming here that after the success, don't forget to spread rumors." Spread rumors? Julius II was a little confused and didn't quite understand what Marin meant. It's like this, the young master said that you can't hide the fact that you led the army into Rome from the world. At that time, no matter how you control the speech, there will be rumors that are unfavorable to you. Well, that makes sense. Julius II nodded. So, the young master said that instead of waiting for others to spread rumors about you, it's better to spread rumors yourself. In fact, Marin's original words were leading troops into Rome, there are too many slots, and it is impossible not to let people complain. So, it's better to blacken yourself first, so that you can control it a little bit. What do you mean? How to operate? Julius II didn't quite understand. Schwarz took out a piece of paper, that was the magic trick that Marin gave him, in general, while controlling official speech and firmly denying that Alexander VI was poisoned, send your men to spread rumors everywhere. But remember one thing, the rumors can be varied, but they must be beneficial to you. Marin means, to spread rumors that are beneficial to me. Julius II seemed to understand a little. Not only that, the young master said here that if we only say good things about you, outsiders will not believe it. Therefore, we have to create a variety of rumors. Rumors that are beneficial to you must be made very realistic so that people will feel that they are true. Rumors that are not beneficial to you must be made very absurd so that people will feel that they are false and think that they are slander against you. Schwarz read from the script. Spreading rumors is also an art and a means of controlling public opinion. Before the emergence of news media such as newspapers and periodicals, rumors were a very important means of public opinion. Even in the 21st century, there are still rumors such as drinking mung bean porridge to prevent SARS, and everyone went crazy buying salt after the Fukushima nuclear leak, and many people believed them to be true. Therefore, if rumors are controlled well, it is also possible to do things that are very beneficial to oneself. Julius II thought for a long time and finally figured it out. What Marin means is to create all kinds of rumors and confuse the public, but in the end, the rumors must be beneficial to me. Yes, Your Holiness, what the young master means is to use rumors that are beneficial to you to squeeze out the space for rumors that are not beneficial to you. Although there will be some rumors that are not beneficial to you mixed in, it is necessary. Because if there are no negative rumors about you, the people will not believe it. So, we must take the initiative to create some rumors that are not beneficial to me, but we must make them clumsily so that anyone with a discerning eye can tell they are false. That's right, according to this method, we will first take the initiative to create hundreds of rumors, 80 of which are beneficial to you and 20 of which are not beneficial to you. But those rumors that are not beneficial to you must be made a little fake, so that people will think they are fake when they hear them. Good idea, I'll arrange for my men to do it now. In this way, before the rumors of the opposition in Rome came out, about 100 rumors were released by Julius II's men. Most of these rumors were favorable to Julius II, but there were also a few that were unfavorable to Julius II. However, those rumors that were unfavorable to Julius II sounded very fake. For example, Julius II was transformed by a witch, Archbishop Rovere himself was actually killed by Alexander VI a long time ago, and the Archbishop Rovere who became the Pope now is actually a walking dead, undead. Julius II killed all the cardinals of the Roman Cardinal College before becoming the Pope. Julius II knew black magic, and he blasted open the north gate of Rome with a black magic and broke in. Julius II likes men, not women, and so on. These rumors that were unfavorable to Julius II sounded unfavorable to Julius II, but because they were too absurd, even ordinary people could hear that this was a naked slander against Julius II. When these hundreds of rumors occupied the market, the rumors released by the hostile forces behind them would be drowned out by these rumors. Because, in the later period, people who were bombarded with rumors had become somewhat immune to rumors. Chapter 173 Reconciliation. Show. Rumors were flying all over Rome, and they also rushed out of Rome and drifted to other parts of the Apennine Peninsula. This was an era lacking in entertainment activities. Making rumors, spreading rumors, and listening to rumors spread by others were definitely the top entertainment activities. So, hundreds of rumors were spread. It seemed that they would not give up. The Rovere rumor spreader was updating the version every day. There were all kinds of rumors. At first, they were only aimed at Julius II. But with the update of the version, it gradually spread to the dead Alexander VI. Moreover, as the most shameless pope in history, Alexander VI had many more complaints than Julius II. Before, Alexander VI was the pope, and he was cruel and ruthless, and the Roman people did not dare to complain. Now, Alexander VI is dead, and his followers have lost their power. Under the secret promotion of the trust in Pope Julius II, the national complaints against Alexander VI were launched vigorously in Rome and the entire Papal States. Julius II suddenly found that it was very helpful to divert everyone's attention by leading everyone to complain about Alexander VI, so that everyone would no longer be entangled in the unconventional things that he led troops into Rome. Therefore, Julius II was more active and hardworking in promoting the public to complain about Alexander VI. Moreover, at the suggestion of Julius II, the relevant personnel spread rumors desperately, making everyone believe that Alexander VI was stupid and accidentally took the poison, Cantrera, he brought with him, and then died of poisoning. Moreover, in order to promote the authority of God, Julius II sent people to hint to everyone that being too reckless would be punished by God. Alexander VI was too reckless and aroused God's wrath. So, let him eat his own poison and die. Not to mention, after this statement was publicized, it aroused widespread resonance among people. Rome is the headquarters of the Vatican and the most trusted city in Europe. This statement is not only believed by the common people, but also by the clergy, and they will even work hard to promote it. Because only by making everyone believe that Alexander VI died of God's wrath can Catholicism appear more authoritative and make people believe that God really exists and is omnipotent. Just when rumors were flying all over Rome and the Papal States, Julius II, who had just become Pope, suddenly received a letter of peace sent by Caesar Borgia from Sicily. In the letter of peace, Caesar Borgia asked Julius II to forgive some minor faults he had committed, and was willing to offer all the property of the Borgia family in Rome. In fact, these properties had long been confiscated by Julius II. Then, most importantly, if Julius II was willing to pardon him, he was willing to persuade the garrison commanders of several other cities in the Papal States, such as Bologna, Ravenna, Rimini, Ancona, etc., to surrender unconditionally to Julius II. In fact, the last condition is more of a hidden threat than a condition. Caesar Borgia's subtext is, if Julius II does not agree to pardon him, these cities will not surrender to Julius II. If you want, then come and fight. Moreover, Caesar Borgia also implicitly reminded Julius II that these cities, except Bologna, are inland cities. Ravenna, Rimini and Ancona are all cities on the east coast of the Apennine Peninsula. If Caesar Borgia is willing, he can support these three cities from the sea and create trouble for Julius II. In fact, the huge assets of the Borgia family, except for the part in Rome and a small part in Spain, are scattered in several cities in the Papal States. Moreover, most of them are real estate, such as manors and various shops and properties in cities. At present, Caesar Borgia can't move those real estates. Moreover, at this time, even if he wants to get rid of them, there may not be anyone to take over. Therefore, Caesar Borgia said that if Julius II was willing to pardon him, he would be willing to give up those real estates. Julius II was very angry about Caesar Borgia's threats. Moreover, before this, Caesar Borgia and his father had also caused great harm to the Rovere family. Before, the Rovere family, as a family that had produced a pope, also had many industries. However, after Alexander VI came to power, all of them were snatched away by the Borgia family. If it weren't for Marin, the upstart son-in-law, Julius II might not have had the funds for activities. Julius II thought about it for a long time. Finally, 10 days later, Julius II wrote back to Caesar's messenger. He was willing to reconcile with Caesar Borgia publicly, but the industries of the Papal States must. This doesn't need to be said so clearly. In addition, Julius II decided to drive Caesar out of Italy, not allow him to appear in Italy, and order him to return to Spain. After receiving this reply from Julius II, Caesar Borgia was relieved. If Julius II didn't want anything and pardoned him directly, he would still suspect that Julius II was trapping him. Although, in exchange for his pardon, he paid most of the Borgia family's wealth in Rome and the entire Papal States. However, the situation is critical now, and it is good enough to save his life, so how can he dare to pick it? Besides, although the Borgia family's real estate in other cities in the Papal States will be given up. However, in several other cities in the Papal States, Caesar Borgia was still able to let his men take away a large amount of property. Those properties were also worth hundreds of thousands of ducats. As long as they took these properties and returned to Spain, the home of the Borgia family, they could still live well. After all, in Spain, the Borgia family also had fiefdoms, and they were not small. In the end, Caesar Borgia still did not dare to show up. However, he sent people to present to Julius II all the land deeds and house deeds in other areas of the Papal States except the city of Rome, all hidden in the main house, and handed over almost all the real estate. Julius II actually wanted to go back on his word and kill Caesar Borgia, but he did not want the Papal Civil War to be caused by Caesar Borgia's non-cooperation. The most important thing is that Julius II wanted to establish the image of a kind and tolerant pope. Therefore, although he wanted to kill Caesar Borgia, after receiving enough benefits, Julius II first pretended to publicly condemn Caesar Borgia's bad behavior. Moreover, Julius II publicly announced that Caesar Borgia was strictly prohibited from appearing in Italy. Finally, for the sake of the deceased Alexander VI, and because God is kind and tolerant. In the end, Julius II ordered Caesar Borgia to be pardoned and sent back to Spain. Your Holiness, you just let this devil go? Schwartz asked in confusion. You know, Caesar Borgia is really a little devil. At the beginning, several members of the Rovere family died in his hands. Therefore, Julius II pardoned Caesar Borgia, which was very incomprehensible. If I don't pardon him, how can I take over the entire Papal States peacefully? Julius II smiled kindly. Just those 2,000 defenders and a few broken cities. Our army has cannons and can easily conquer them. Schwartz said confidently. I know you can conquer those cities, but what I want is a complete Papal State, not a Papal State that is beaten to pieces. This will be beneficial to my future rule. But, are you just going to let him go like this? Schwartz said somewhat unwillingly. Yes, openly, I did let him go. Julius II said meaningfully. Openly? Are you going to do it secretly? Schwartz suddenly realized. Julius II was also insidious enough. In order to obtain an undestroyed Papal State, he would rather publicly pardon Caesar Borgia, his great enemy. However, privately, he planned to find someone to kill Caesar Borgia. Well, tell your young master that he will arrange this matter. I am a kind and tolerant pope. Those bad things have nothing to do with me. Then, Julius II walked away calmly. Let the young master kill Caesar Borgia. This. Schwartz was a little stunned. It seems that the young master's father-in-law is a bit shameless. No wonder they became father-in-law and son-in-law. Chapter 174 The Pope's Legion. After reaching an agreement with Caesar Borgia, Julius II sent troops to take over several other cities in the northeast of the Papal States. However, after taking over those cities, a total of 2,500 people were scattered. As a result, there were only 4,500 people and a 100-man papal guard in Rome. According to the previous plan, the papal army was going to attack the Republic of Florence, but Rome had to be guarded by at least 2,000 people. So, we can't just use 2,500 people to attack at that time, right? Therefore, Julius II discussed with Schwartz and planned to recruit a new group of soldiers. After training, they would take over the East Frisian troops stationed in several other cities of the Papal States. Even, they would take over the task of garrisoning Rome from the East Frisian troops. Then, all the 7,000 East Frisian troops under Schwartz, who were powerful in combat, were sent to attack the Republic of Florence. Originally, Julius II was going to recruit the existing Italian mercenaries directly, but Schwartz firmly disagreed. Your Holiness, the young master once said that Italian mercenaries are the worst disciplined army in Europe. In terms of individuals, Italian mercenaries are not much worse than German mercenaries. But when the number of people increases, Italian mercenaries become a group of pigs. Julius II looked a little ugly. After all, he himself is Italian. Is it appropriate for Schwartz to laugh at Italian mercenaries in front of him? Are you going to recruit soldiers in the German region? You know, Schwartz, this is Italy. If I use all German mercenaries, I will be criticized. Julius II was right. Since the emergence of the Holy Roman Empire, Germans and Italians have loved and killed each other for hundreds of years. During this period, there have been many marching into Rome incidents. Many Holy Roman emperors led the German army to march into Rome. On the one hand, they asked or coerced the Pope to help them crown the emperor, and on the other hand, they also showed off their military power to the Romans. Therefore, the Romans, who had been bullied by the Germans many times, actually had resentment towards the Germans. If German mercenaries were invited to Rome occasionally, it would not be a big deal. Or, it would not be a big deal if there were a certain number of Germans in the army. However, if all the soldiers of the Papal States were Germans, the Romans would not look good. Therefore, Julius II meant that the newly recruited soldiers should preferably be Italians. Is that so? Schwartz thought for a while and said, or, we can select a new army from the Italian peasants. Italian peasants? Julius II frowned and said, peasants also have fighting power. Julius II was a little dissatisfied with Schwartz's choice of peasants instead of Italian mercenaries. Your Holiness, do you know? Except for some officers, the 7,000 soldiers under my command were all peasants in the German region. What? Julius II shouted in surprise. The East Frisian army was powerful, and Julius II had always thought that they all came from a German warrior family. I was one of the first few attendants who followed the young master. I followed the young master since the first time he recruited soldiers. At that time, the young master proposed that there were 4 things to do and 4 things not to do when recruiting soldiers. In fact, these 4 things to do and 4 things not to do were copied by Ma Lin from Qi Jiguang's recruitment requirements, which was also an important guarantee for the strong combat effectiveness of the Qi family army. What about the 4 things to do and 4 things not to do? Julius II also became interested. Regarding the 4 things not to do, first, don't want city people and people who look smart. City people are cunning and knowledgeable, and they are unwilling to be cannon fodder. The same is true for smart people, who are not easy to fool and will not be willing to be cannon fodder. As a soldier, those who are unwilling to be cannon fodder are not good soldiers. Second, don't want those who have served in the government and those who have served in the army. Those who have served in the government, that is, civil servants, are 100 times more cunning than the gangsters in the city, and their minds are cunning, but they are definitely not suitable for fighting as soldiers. Many of those who have served in the military are veterans. Such veterans who survived are generally good at self-preservation and good at escaping. If they are recruited, they can easily lead the new recruits astray. Therefore, even if they have strong fighting ability, they cannot be accepted. Third, those over 40 and those who are white are not accepted. Men over 40 have reduced physical fitness, are not suitable for long-distance marches, and have poor explosive power. And those who are white, obviously lack outdoor sports and do not meet the physical fitness standards. Fourth, those who are particularly timid and those who are particularly courageous are not accepted. Those who are particularly timid are not accepted, which is easy to understand, because the battlefield does not need cowards. But those who are particularly courageous are not accepted. This is related to the issue of discipline. Those who are particularly courageous are often undisciplined and prone to disobeying orders. A strong army needs a group of obedient people, not disobedient fools. As for the 4 requirements, first, standard farmers, or miners, who work every day. Such people do physical work every day and have guaranteed physical fitness. Second, they should be big, dark, strong, and have strong skin. A strong and resistant soldier is a good soldier. Third, they should have a bright eye. Those with a sluggish eye are either sick or taking drugs, or they have masturbated too much and are weak. Fourth, they should be a little afraid of officials. Only when they are afraid, they are easier to discipline. Julius II was stunned for a long time after hearing these 4 musts and 4 don'ts, but he was a smart man after all, and finally understood part of the meaning of these 4 musts and 4 don'ts. With Schwartz's explanation, he also began to admire his son-in-law who looked a little out of tune. Of course, our Pope didn't know that his son-in-law was indeed out of tune. But he couldn't help but read a lot of books. With the precedent of Marshal Chi to follow, the out-of-touch Marin could also select and train elite soldiers. So, what is your opinion? Julius II asked. Julius II knew that although Marin was the nominal boss of the army of the East Frisian county, Schwartz was actually in charge of the management and training of the army. Therefore, when Schwartz came to Italy to help, Julius II would never miss this great opportunity. At least, Schwartz had to help train an army of his own. According to the young master's previous choice, it was mainly selected from mountain people and farmers. Italy is mountainous, and it is easy to find mountain people. At that time, find some honest and simple mountain people in the Papal States. Okay, I'll leave this matter to you. At that time, I will let Marin, that stinky boy, reward you. If Marin heard this, he would definitely roll his eyes. Your son-in-law is the one who should be rewarded, how stingy you are. By the way, what do you think about the officers of the new army? Julius II suddenly remembered this very important question. Soldiers are stupid, and officers are the guiding lights of the soldiers. Therefore, to control an army, you must first control the officers in it. This, officers can be recommended by Your Holiness the Pope. People from the Rovere family and allied families can be used. But remember, only those who obey orders must be appointed. Our army absolutely does not welcome those who do not obey military regulations. Even officers who violate military regulations will be severely punished. I understand this. I will go to my family and allied families and ask them to recommend suitable children to serve as officers. Since he wanted an army under his control, Julius II naturally hoped that those officers were his own people. Fortunately, he had been in Rome for decades and had many old subordinates. In addition, the Rovere family was also a large family with many young descendants. In this way, the Papal Legion that later followed the Pope of War across Italy was established under the consultation of Julius II and Schwartz. This Papal Legion imitated the ancient Roman military system and had a total of 6,000 people. Schwartz led his officers to conduct strict training according to the training methods of the East Frisian county. When the training of this legion is completed, the defense of Rome and several other cities in the Papal States will be taken over by them. And Schwartz will lead his 7,000 troops to attack Florence and exchange the bishopric of Munster for Marin. Chapter 175, The Fall of Leeuwarden. In the West Frisian region, the Saxon army and the Frisian resistance army, which had the help of the Duchy of Geddes, fought each other for more than 2 years. In general, the Saxon army had the upper hand. The Saxon army not only controlled the Hanseatic city of Groningen and the surrounding areas, but also controlled a small half of the western part of West Frisia, and had already laid siege to Leeuwarden. However, the strong walls of Leeuwarden, coupled with the number of 8,000 defenders, made it difficult for the Saxon army to get any good results. In the end, the war between the two families turned into a confrontation based on the city of Leeuwarden. In order to defend, the West Frisian resistance army even organized the people to take advantage of the intermittent truce period to dig rivers in the south and north of Leeuwarden to prevent the Saxon army from bypassing Leeuwarden and attacking westward. Therefore, Leeuwarden and the rivers to the north and south have become the Chu River and Han boundary between the army of the Duchy of Saxony and the West Frisian resistance army. Most of the area to the east was under the control of the Saxon army, while a small part of the coastal area to the west was under the control of the West Frisian resistance. For a long time, although the two armies had tentative contacts, they were at peace, until the situation was like this, when Marin led 20,000 troops to join the 10,000 troops of Lübeck and Hamburg, sweeping across the earldom of Oldenburg in Denmark. He invented a very powerful siege method, that is, to use artillery to first break through the oak gate and make a hole. Then, put the gunpowder barrel into the hole and bury it, and blow down the gate. This wretched but practical tactic, the Danes did not realize the practical defense method of the big iron gate until the end of the war. But it was too late. However, this war mainly took place in Denmark, and other areas were not very clear about the details. However, this does not include Frederick III, the Elector of Saxony. After all, he is the brother-in-law of King Hans of Denmark. So, the princes who were familiar with this kind of wretched city-breaking tactics through this war replaced the gates of their own cities with iron gates. At the very least, they had to cover the oak gates with iron plates to prevent holes from being smashed by the enemy's iron ball shells. Coincidentally, George, Duke of Saxony, often returned to his country to handle government affairs while sending a large army to confront the West Frisian resistance. When he was free, he also visited Wittenberg, the capital of the Electorate of Saxony. George is no longer the second-rate young man he was back then. The various setbacks after he ascended the throne made him realize that he was not as awesome as he imagined. So he began to put down his face and began to please his cousin, the Elector of Saxony, Frederick III. Although Frederick III was very dissatisfied with George's contempt for him at the beginning, they were all family after all. Moreover, the national strength of the Duchy of Saxony was not much worse than that of the Electorate of Saxony. If the Duchy of Saxony had not suffered a shocking defeat in East Frisia, its national strength would not be inferior to that of the Electorate of Saxony. Moreover, although Frederick III became the new leader of the Saxon nobles after the death of Duke Albrecht, there were still a small number of Saxon nobles who continued to follow Duke George. Therefore, Frederick III was also willing to win over his cousin George and use him for his own benefit. One day in July, George went to Wittenberg as a guest again, but saw that Wittenberg was replacing the city gate, which was very lively. What surprised George even more was that the replaced city gate was actually a large iron gate made of pure iron. George was puzzled and asked his cousin Frederick III for advice, so Frederick III told George about what happened on the Danish battlefield. Originally, Duke George listened to it as a joke. However, after returning to Dresden, Duke George told this joke to his men, and a general named Huss took it to heart. So, he suggested to George, "Duke, since Marin's tactics are so useful, why don't we learn from them?" "What do you mean?" George was a little confused. "We have a lot of Saxon artillery, although they are not as large as Marin's artillery. But if hundreds of artillery are fired together and aimed at, it should be no problem to make a hole in the gate of Leeuwarden, right?" Indeed. George seemed to understand, but it was still a little short. After all, his IQ was not high. If it were his cousin Frederick III, he would have understood it long ago. "Then, we send people to carry gunpowder barrels and bury them in the hole, wouldn't it blow up the gate of Leeuwarden? Then, the army will rush in." It was said so straightforwardly, and George understood it. He jumped up excitedly, "Great, we can finally take Leeuwarden." Then, Duke George began to organize the blacksmith shops in the country to cast a large number of iron ball shells. Previously, although the Duchy of Saxony had hundreds of artillery pieces, most of them used stone bullets. Stone bullets were fine for hitting people, but they didn't have enough kinetic energy to break down doors. So George began to order the blacksmiths in the duchy to step up the production of iron ball shells for breaking down doors. In August, George brought a convoy of iron ball shells to the city of Leeuwarden. Although the Duchy of Saxony's artillery pieces were all small-caliber land-based artillery pieces, hundreds of small-caliber land-based artillery pieces bombarding the east gate of Leeuwarden together was also very powerful. After that day, under the impact of the rain of small iron balls, a hole was really smashed in the east gate of Leeuwarden. Then, Duke George organized a death squad, ran to the city gate at night, and buried 2 gunpowder barrels in the hole. With a loud bang, the east gate of Leeuwarden was blown down, and even the bricks and stones piled behind the gate. Seeing this great opportunity, Duke George quickly commanded the sword and shield soldiers to be the vanguard and rushed into the city first. The West Frisian resistance army was not prepared because it was night. When the east gate made a loud noise and was blown open, many soldiers would go to dinner. Unprepared, the West Frisian resistance was beaten back by the Saxon army and retreated from the west gate to Harlingen and Zurich on the seaside. Just like that, in one night, the fortress of Leeuwarden changed hands. And, tragically, of the original 9 nobles in West Frisia, only the former governor Fiskfrigide and Baron Zittel of Leeuwarden withdrew from Leeuwarden under the desperate protection of the commander Sivag. As for the other 7 nobles, 4 were killed in the chaos, and 3 became prisoners of George, which was extremely miserable. Of the 8,000 West Frisian resistance troops originally stationed in Leeuwarden, 1,000 died in battle and 2,500 surrendered. Only about 4,500 people actually escaped. However, less than 3,000 people fled in an orderly manner with the 2 nobles and Sivag. After the others escaped, they all got separated. In desperation, Governor Fiskfrigide and Baron Zittel had to board a ship at the port of Harlingen and retreat to the Principality of Guedes by sea. On board were 800 people led by Sivag. As for the other more than 2,000 people, they fled south along the road along the sea to the Principality of Guedes. So far, the actions of the West Frisian resistance army have been considered a failure. When Marin learned of this information, he was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. He didn't expect that the pig-headed Duke George actually learned to copy and succeeded. However, Marin was not particularly pessimistic. Because he knew that the old fox, Charles II, Duke of Guedes, would never watch George being complacent. When this guy jumped from behind the scenes to the front and confronted Duke George, the situation would become more exciting. "Hee, you are the mantis, and I am the oriole. As for that idiot George, of course it's the cicada. Those idiots in West Frisia are not even cicadas." Marin smiled obscenely, and had already decided that West Frisia would be his territory. Chapter 176 Borrowing Seed. Having just finished the war, and with 7,000 soldiers and horses being sent to Italy, Marin felt that he should develop the economy honestly recently. Among them, the development of the textile industry has been put on the important agenda. You know, in the current Europe, the textile industry is definitely one of the important industries to increase fiscal revenue. Flanders has become an economically developed region in Europe because of the wool textile industry. In Flanders, many women are engaged in the wool textile industry and earn no less money than men. Even in many families, men have nothing to do and stay at home to take care of children, while women go to wool textile factories to make money to support their families. Moreover, whether it is operating a wool textile factory, exporting woolen cloth, or even importing and exporting wool, taxes can be generated. It is precisely because of the developed wool textile industry in Flanders that Flanders has become a famous wealthy region in Europe at that time. Of course, it also aroused the covetousness of Charles the Bold, the father-in-law of Maximilian I, and was annexed. Moreover, after Prince Philip, son of Maximilian I, inherited Burgundy, he did not live in Burgundy deep inland, but moved his residence directly to Ghent, the city with the most developed wool textile industry in Flanders. At this time, Ghent had a population of 55,000, making it the fourth largest city in the Holy Roman Empire, second only to Milan, 100,000, Prague, 70,000, and Genoa, 58,000, and was the textile capital of Europe at that time. Most of the 55,000 residents in the city were also related to the textile industry. Every year, the taxes collected from Flanders account for more than half of the Netherlands. Unfortunately, Prince Philip was separated from his father since childhood and was not very close to Maximilian I. Therefore, although the famous handsome King Philip, the husband of the crazy Juana, was financially sound, he was unwilling to fully support his father Maximilian I, but instead intercepted most of the fiscal revenue to maintain his extravagant life. If not, Maximilian I would not be financially strapped. However, Maximilian I had no way to deal with this. After all, it was his son Philip, not him, who was the Duke of Burgundy. Therefore, Maximilian I had not been able to fully utilize the financial power of the Netherlands. Moreover, the Dutch parliament had been instigating Prince Philip to go against his father. Prince Philip had been separated from his father since he was a child and had been growing up in the royal palace in Ghent. He was accompanied more by members of the Dutch parliament. Under their influence and instigation, Prince Philip had little feelings for his father. Maximilian I, on the other hand, did not mind his son's selfishness. After all, he only had one son. In fact, the crazy Juana was still a good person until now. It was just that she was driven crazy by her unfeeling husband Philip. Of course, we will not discuss the selfishness and unfeeling of handsome King Philip in detail here. The main discussion here is the developed wool textile industry in Flanders. Originally, there were two factors that led to the development of the wool textile industry in Flanders. First, there were many talented people in the local textile industry. In addition to various craftsmen who were good at making textile machines and processing wool, mainly removing oil and odor, there were also a large number of women who were proficient in spinning and weaving. In addition, Flanders was right on the North Sea, facing Britain. At the beginning, Britain was a major wool exporter. Moreover, British wool was fine wool sheep with high quality. In the whole of Europe, British wool ranked second in wool quality, and Spanish merino wool ranked first. However, the Spanish merino sheep were regarded as national treasures and were prohibited from flowing out. Even the wool of merino sheep was only circulated in southern Europe such as Spain and Italy, and could not be circulated in Flanders at all. Moreover, other countries had tried to secretly introduce merino sheep. However, merino sheep have a characteristic, that is, they like the sunshine and dry climate of Spain very much, and are not very adaptable to the humid climate. For example, in history, merino sheep were introduced to North America, but failed. Because, merino sheep, which are used to the dry climate, are prone to foot rot when they arrive in the humid North America. However, after being introduced to the dry Australian continent, they have developed rapidly, making Australia a country riding on the back of sheep. In the same difficult situation, other European countries, especially northern countries, cannot feed merino sheep even if they are introduced. Because they are not adapted to the local climate. However, Marin has a solution. This solution is to use ewes to find merino rams to borrow seeds and create hybrid breeds. As long as the mother is a sheep native to northwestern Europe, then the offspring born from the combination with merino rams will mostly be able to adapt to the humid climate environment of northwestern Europe and will not suffer from foot rot. You know, the body of an animal develops in the mother's body. Its physiological characteristics are also closer to the mother. Therefore, the Jews have a way to determine Jewish ancestry based on the mother. Therefore, if you want to introduce excellent foreign livestock breeds and are afraid that foreign species are not adapted to the local climate, the best way is to introduce foreign male animals and make local female animals pregnant. The domestic merino sheep of China in later generations are mixed with Australian male merino sheep and use of excellent local fine wool sheep breeds such as the local Xinjiang fine wool sheep. The German merino sheep are also obtained by mating local ewes with merino rams. British fine wool sheep are produced in the humid climate of the British Isles, so they naturally do not suffer from hoof rot. The climate of the United Kingdom is also very similar to that of the coastal areas of the North Sea in Germany. Previously, Marin secretly obtained a large number of British fine wool sheep from the United Kingdom at a high price, ready to be used as mothers, introduce the excellent genes of merino sheep, and create a new breed of sheep. After combining the characteristics of merino sheep and British fine wool sheep, the quality of wool of the final breed will exceed that of British fine wool sheep, but it will be worse than that of purebred merino sheep. Marin also intends to develop the wool textile industry in his home country, but the wool textile industry also needs enough wool. Moreover, it must be good wool. Europe is not short of wool, but most of the sheep in Europe are coarse wool sheep, similar to those in North Africa and West Asia. Coarse wool is everywhere, not rare, and can't be sold at a high price. Fine wool, on the other hand, is mainly Spanish merino wool and British wool. These two high-end wools are in short supply. The current silk production in Europe is very low and the quality is not good. Even so, only wealthy nobles can wear silk clothes. Generally, people with better economic conditions cannot afford silk, but they are not willing to wear coarse wool clothes like ordinary people. Therefore, high-end wool woven from fine wool is widely sought after by the wealthy class in Europe. Therefore, in the European trade market, merino wool and British fine wool are now hard to find. After Henry VII came to power, the British government now severely cracked down on wool exports and turned to support wool textile exports. This is mainly because the export of wool textiles receives more taxes than the export of wool. Moreover, the development of the wool textile industry can also create a large number of jobs. Therefore, in recent years, the economy of the Flemish region has actually suffered a certain blow. Because the high-quality British wool they could obtain was becoming less and less. Therefore, many wool spinning mills closed down. Even those that did not close down had to switch to medium and low-quality wool spinning using coarse wool as raw material. However, this way, the profit was much lower. Marin went through great pains and spent a lot of money to get 1,500 female British fine wool sheep from the UK at a high price in a few years. Now, he plans to use a ship to transport these British fine wool sheep to the Layoun Oasis in Western Sahara to breed with those merino rams. Then, take these pregnant ewes back to East Friesland. After the ewes give birth, they will be selected to select the most suitable for the local climate and the best wool quality, and then breed. In this way, high-end fine wool sheep with quality exceeding British fine wool sheep can be obtained. Before, when 100 pairs of merino sheep were introduced from Spain, Marin was forced to promise the Spanish kings not to take the merino sheep away from Western Sahara. Now, Marin did not violate the agreement with the kings. He just got a group of British girls in the sheep world, and after entangled with purebred merino rams, he left with the seeds. Even if the Spanish kings knew, they could not blame Marin. Because the lambs born from British fine wool sheep are no longer merino sheep, but a new breed. Moreover, it is a new breed that can adapt to the climate in Germany. Although the wool quality of this new breed of fine wool sheep is not as good as that of Spanish merino sheep, it is better than British fine wool. British fine wool is still in short supply in the European market. The export price of British wool is about 2,000 pence per bag, weighing 360 pounds. Adding a heavy tax of 400 pence per bag, the export price of British wool is as high as 6.66 pence per pound. If East Frisia breeds a new breed of sheep with better wool quality than British fine wool, wool will still be sold at that time. The price will not be low. At that time, breeding this kind of high-quality fine wool sheep will become a high-value industry. Exporting wool or processing it into high-end wool and then exporting it are both good choices. Moreover, this new breed of sheep can generally adapt to the climate of America. British sheep are more adapted to the North American climate. How big is the territory of America? By then, if the sheep farming industry is developed in North America, and the sheep farming industry that raises new sheep with higher wool quality than that of the UK, won't the British sheep farming industry be defeated? Sheep farming is different from agriculture, because plowing, sowing and harvesting all require a lot of manpower, material resources and animal power. Therefore, without enough population, even if there is more land, it cannot be developed. But sheep farming is different. As long as there is enough land, herders can raise a lot of sheep. In particular, if there is the help of sheepdogs, a family can raise a lot of sheep. For example, the New Zealand ranch that Marin saw on the internet in his previous life is 100,000 acres in size, raising 28,000 sheep and 26,000 cattle. However, this ranch has only 7 people in the family and 40 sheepdogs. Therefore, in the absence of labor and advanced agricultural machinery, the best way to develop such a large area in North America is to raise more sheep and cattle and horses and make full use of the land. Thinking of this, Marin suddenly thought of the famous German Shepherd. It seems that this breed has not yet appeared. However, its ancestral species should be available, right? Marin decided to send people to various places in Germany to look for it. Chapter 177 German Shepherd. The population of this era was very small. For example, the total population of the German region, including Austria, Czech Republic, etc., was only about 12 million. Counting the German region in later generations alone, there were only about 9 million people. There were so many states in the German region, and ordinary counties had only tens of thousands of people. A state with a population of more than 100,000 was considered a decent vassal state. A population of 200,000 or 300,000 was definitely considered a great power among the vassal states. More than 1 million was definitely a hegemony level. Although many manors in the German region are now overpopulated. However, even if Marin immigrated all the surplus population in the German region, it would not exceed 2 million people. Moreover, that was impossible. Marin wanted to do this, but other vassal states might not agree. Even if these 2 million people were taken to immigrate and thrown to the North American continent, I am afraid that they would not even be able to make a wave. Because North America is too big. If you have large agricultural machinery, it is no problem for a family to cultivate thousands of hectares of land. But the problem is that there is no agricultural machinery now. A family of 5 can only cultivate more than 100 mu of land, which is about 20 acres. Only by herding sheep can the land be fully utilized. At the same time, it can provide a lot of meat and wool, as well as sheepskin that can be made into parchment. And shepherding sheep does not require all people. Using a sheepdog is a convenient way. After all, as long as the dog is well trained, it is more responsible than a human. At least, in the matter of driving the flock of sheep, because it runs fast, it is more powerful than a human. Moreover, the growth cycle of a sheepdog is very short. For example, after a German Shepherd is born, it can start training at the age of 3 months, and it can be put into work to herd sheep within a year. If it were a human, it would take more than 10 years to have the ability to herd sheep, and it would not be as good as a German Shepherd. Therefore, using a sheepdog has a quick return and low cost. In his previous life, Marin had a very clever big wolf dog, German Shepherd, which was brought back to him from the city by his uncle. Although it may not be pure enough, it is also very smart. The most important thing is that when the German Shepherd grows up, it is very powerful. When it is tied in front of the door, basically no stranger dares to approach. Although, in terms of shepherding, the German Shepherd may not be as smart as the Border Collie. However, the German Shepherd has some advantages that the Border Collie cannot compare with. The most important point is that the German Shepherd can be used as a military dog or a police dog, while the Border Collie is too small to adapt to such work. Therefore, Marin decided to send people to various parts of the German region to find the ancestor breeds of the German Shepherd, and then cultivate them to obtain an excellent shepherd dog and a military dog. Needless to say, shepherd dogs can help farmers shepherd sheep. Moreover, the tall German Shepherd can also become a guard dog at home because of its bravery. Robbers and thieves will also be afraid of large dogs like the German Shepherd. The short Border Collie has no deterrent power and can only work hard to herd sheep. As for military dogs, because of Marin's leading role, it can be expected that European countries will pay more and more attention to night raids in the future. Because of night raids, Marin has been successful many times. European countries are used to imitating each other. Therefore, Marin can be sure that there will be more and more night raids in the future. Just like the Saxon army attacked Leeuwarden this time, they took advantage of the night to blow up the city gate and suddenly attacked the city. Not only that, they also learned Marin's means of blowing up the city gate. Therefore, in the future wars, Marin also needs to guard against the enemy's use of night raids against himself. In addition to planning to arrange secret sentries to guard against the enemy's night raids, Marin plans to arrange military dogs to guard the night. Military dogs have strong hearing and high alertness. If the enemy dares to sneak over, it is easy for the military dogs to hear the noise. As long as the military dogs bark and issue an early warning, the enemy's night raid will be exposed. In this regard, the sentry can't compare with the military dog. At night, the sentry can only see the situation within the range of light coverage. Since the enemy is coming to attack at night, they will definitely hide in the dark and will not be easily discovered by you. But if you have a military dog, no matter where you hide, as long as you move, you will definitely make a sound. As long as the military dog hears it, it will issue an early warning in time. In addition, military dogs also have the function of clearing local scouts. Soldiers take military dogs out and walk around the military camp. In some remote corners, based on the smell left by people, they can find enemy scouts and attack the enemy's reconnaissance capabilities. At this time, only Marin and his more trusted subordinates have telescopes. Other forces do not have this thing. If the enemy wants to spy on the situation in Marin's army, they can only send spies to conduct close reconnaissance. In this way, as long as the patrol soldiers take the military dogs out for a walk, it will be easy to catch the enemy's spies and make the enemy blind. As for the ability to detect drugs and find explosives, there is no such demand at present, so there is no need to rush to train such abilities. Of course, Marin's men don't have such trained talents now. However, the ability to guard, patrol and track is enough to meet the needs at this stage, so there is no need to pursue too much. In order to find the German Shepherd, Marin painted the image of the German Shepherd in his memory on paper, and asked his men to look for it everywhere. Unexpectedly, the portrait of the German Shepherd painted by Marin was seen by one of his soldiers, who immediately recognized it. Isn't this a common wolf dog in our Alsace region? Most of Marin's soldiers came from the Württemberg Mountains and Alsace. And the soldier who recognized the portrait of the German Shepherd was an Alsatian. Marin quickly called the soldier and asked him for details. It turned out that in Alsace, this kind of shepherd dog called Alsace wolf dog is a very common thing. As a soldier born in Alsace, he has naturally seen it many times. Moreover, the manor owners in Alsace like to raise this large fierce dog to intimidate serfs. If any serf was disobedient, he might be bitten by this Alsatian wolf dog. Coincidentally, this Alsatian warrior named Herd had been bitten by the Alsatian wolf dog released by the young master of the manor because of a conflict with him. He was deeply impressed. So, after seeing the portrait of the German Shepherd, he immediately recognized it. Very good, Herd, I now entrust you to bring people and money back to get me dozens of puppies of this dog. At the same time, hire a few people who are good at training this dog. If the matter is done, I will reward you handsomely. Hearing that he could get a handsome reward as long as he found a group of puppies and a few dog trainers, the soldier named Herd was also very happy. As a veteran, Herd naturally knew that his boss was a local tyrant. Marin said that there would be a handsome reward and he would never let people down. Therefore, Herd returned to his hometown with a team of assistants full of energy to find Alsatian wolf dog puppies and professionals who are good at dog training. Marin was more looking forward to the tall and mighty German Shepherd being bred in his hands than Herd. By then, it must be very impressive to go out with a wolf dog. No, I am the king of a country, and it is not good to scare people with a wolf dog. Therefore, the glorious task of showing off with a wolf dog should be handed over to my son, Little Caesar. In his previous life, Marin had seen a naughty kid riding a German Shepherd as a dog cavalry, which was very funny. Moreover, because the naughty kid was riding a wolf dog, he insisted that he was a wolf cavalry, which almost made Marin laugh. Marin decided to take advantage of Caesar's young age and light weight to let him feel the feeling of being a dog cavalry. Unfortunately, Marin did not have a camera or mobile phone to take pictures. However, we can let Da Vinci draw pictures to record those funny moments. What Marin didn't expect was that because of his funny idea, Leonardo da Vinci left behind a famous painting, Caesar riding a dog. Chapter 178 Reactions of Various Countries. Because Pope Alexander VI died suddenly, and Julius II was elected as the new pope in a very short time. Therefore, what happened in Rome made other European countries fail to react for a while. By the time they reacted, they had received an invitation from the Vatican to attend the Pope's coronation ceremony. In fact, no matter who the Pope is, most countries and regions don't care much. However, the following countries are different. They are France, Spain, Portugal and Holy Roman Empire. France and Spain care about who the Pope is, and the reason is very simple. Because both countries need the Pope to rule on the ownership of the Kingdom of Naples. Before, France had the upper hand. Whether in military strength or politics, France has the upper hand. Because in the last few years, Pope Alexander VI abandoned his motherland Spain and allied with France instead. The reason for this is that France promised that after taking over the Kingdom of Naples, it would give large tracts of land to Alexander VI's illegitimate sons Caesar and Geoffrey. Therefore, Alexander VI decisively abandoned his motherland Spain and mixed with King Louis XII of France. Unfortunately, Alexander VI died suddenly before the ownership of the Kingdom of Naples was determined, which made the French very depressed. Speaking of which, the new Pope Julius II was once a staunch ally of France. As early as the time of Charles VIII, Julius II, who was still the Bishop of Rovere at the time, regarded Paris as his own home. At that time, Julius II was an ally of France, while Alexander VI was the mortal enemy of France and an ally of Spain. However, after Louis XII came to power, the French gave up the then down-and-out Archbishop of Rovere and instead formed an alliance with Alexander VI. As a result, Archbishop Rovere, who had a close relationship with France, became hostile to the French and was almost kidnapped and sent to Rome. In this way, because of the rise of Louis XII, the allies of the two great powers changed. However, Archbishop Rovere did not defect to Spain. However, his relationship with France could not be good. The French were actually very depressed. If they had received the news earlier, they could have sent troops to Rome to demonstrate and force the Roman cardinals to elect a pope close to France before the new pope was elected. After all, although the French army was defeated by the Spanish army, it is still guarding the northern line of the Kingdom of Naples, very close to Rome. Unfortunately, it's too late now. The new pope has been elected and announced to the world. Even the French dare not kill the new pope. Unless it wants to be beaten up by a group of people from all over Europe. What's more, they trusted Pope Julius II and brought 7,000 soldiers and horses, which is enough to defend the city. Compared with the depression of the French, the Spaniards are more happy than worried about the election of Julius II. The Spaniards are happy that because of the change of allies, it is difficult for Julius II to get together with Louis XII. In this way, Julius II may be more partial to Spain in judging the ownership of the Kingdom of Naples. What the Spaniards were worried about was the Treaty of Tordesillas signed when Alexander VI supported Spain in the early days, and the permission for Spain to trade in India later. Whether the new pope would recognize it. If the original history had been developed, Julius II would definitely have redeclared the legitimacy of the Treaty of Tordesillas. Because, in the original history, Spain did not get involved in the real Indian trade. And Portugal also made a fortune in silence. Therefore, in the original history, the two teeth had no objection to the Treaty of Tordesillas. However, because of Marin's crossing, things have changed dramatically. Spain has not yet discovered gold and silver in the Americas, but was seduced by Marin to the real India and began to compete with the Portuguese for business. So, the problem is that the Portuguese naturally hope that the Treaty of Tordesillas will continue to be effective, but the Spaniards have changed. Because the huge profits from the Indian spice trade have made the two Spanish kings so excited that they can't breathe. Therefore, the Spaniards were dissatisfied with the Treaty of Tordesillas. Because the rich America was deliberately called the Savage Continent by Marin, a wretched guy, and there was a syphilis incident, which made the Spaniards somewhat uninterested in America. On the contrary, the huge profits brought by the Indian route are real. So, for now, both Portugal and Spain hope to dominate the Indian trade route and squeeze the other side to the Savage Continent. Therefore, Spain will no longer insist on the Treaty of Tordesillas, but Portugal will insist unilaterally. These two countries will have a fight for this sooner or later. If it were in the past, Julius II might have chosen to make peace with this and try to mediate the conflict between the two countries. However, before leaving East Frisia and returning to Italy, Marin found Julius II and had a long secret talk with him. After this secret talk, Julius II already had a clear idea in his mind. According to Marin's advice, Julius II will not rush to draw conclusions. However, on the issue of the interests of the Indian route, he will choose to favor Spain. However, Spain cannot take all the benefits. As the price of obtaining the right to trade with India, it must give up at least half of the interests of the American continent. As for who will the benefits be given to? Do you still need to ask? It must be given to Marin. As for Portugal, this grandson, it is natural for Spain to deal with it. Portugal is indeed strong at sea, but Marin once gave the Spanish kings a bad idea to go abroad once there is a conflict between Spain and Portugal, don't pay attention to the provocation of the Portuguese at sea, and directly organized tens of thousands of troops on land to surround Lisbon. It is true that I can't beat you at sea, but I can kill you on land. So, in the end, Portugal will definitely suffer. And at that time, Marin only needs to hide behind and pick up the bargain. As for the last big man who cares about the change of the Pope, it is Maximilian I, the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. As for why he cares? It's because he, the Holy Roman Emperor, has not yet been crowned in Rome. So, Maximilian I especially hopes that the new Pope will stand on his side. In this way, it is also easy for the Pope to crown him. Before, although he bought the throne of the Eastern Roman Empire from Andreas Palaiologos, it was just an empty title without any practical significance. Because Maximilian I did not get any territory of the Eastern Roman Empire. Moreover, most of the territories were occupied by the extremely powerful Turkey, and it was extremely difficult to get them back. Therefore, in comparison, the throne of the Holy Roman Empire is more real. At least, after the coronation, it is more legitimate. In this case, it would be strange if Maximilian I did not care who the Pope of Rome was or what his political stance was. What made Maximilian I happy was that although Julius II might not be close to him, he was definitely not close to Louis XII of France. As long as he was not an ally of the French, it would be easy to deal with, and there was a great hope for his coronation. However, what Maximilian I didn't know was that his trusted General Marin secretly proposed to his father-in-law that Maximilian I should not be crowned easily. At least, he should let the emperor help him, get more territory, and strongly support him politically before he could be crowned as he wished. If Maximilian I knew that Marin was hindering his coronation, he would probably be so angry that he would immediately come to Aurich with a knife and chop Marin into 8 pieces. Chapter 179, Rusty City Gate. In the summer, the coastal areas of northern Germany are rainy. Although it is not a heavy rain, the climate is humid and makes people feel uncomfortable. The cast iron gates replaced in the 3 important cities of Aurich, Emden and Leer, the capital of East Frisia, were found to be rusty. Because Marin used artillery plus blasting when attacking Denmark, the pure oak gates in Europe were outdated. Therefore, the Danes took the lead in introducing cast iron gates in Copenhagen, which once left Marin's army helpless. After returning to East Frisia, Marin did not want others to use the same method against him. Therefore, the 3 most important cities in East Frisia naturally took the lead in installing cast iron gates. Even the cast iron gates of Emden were dismantled and modified from Copenhagen. Marin actually understood the shortcomings of iron gates, that is, they are easy to rust. Therefore, he had arranged for his men to paint the big iron gates to isolate moisture. However, the paint of this era was very primitive and of poor quality. After a long time, after being exposed to wind and sun, the paint will easily fall off. After the paint falls off, the iron part is exposed. Then, with some wind and rain, it will naturally rust. Although he had expected this, Marin was still very troubled. If a big iron door is broken, the loss will be very large. After all, blast furnace ironmaking is not popular in Europe now, but some blacksmith shops are still using the primitive method of piling iron ore and charcoal in charcoal furnaces to make iron. Therefore, the price of iron is very high. In desperation, Marin had to order repainting. However, European paint is so expensive now, and it costs a lot to paint several times. There is no synthetic paint now. All paints are extracted from lacquer trees and minerals. The quantity is small and the price is expensive. If you paint every 3 or 5 days, the cost is a bit high. So, Marin thought of galvanizing. Unfortunately, Europeans have not yet extracted zinc. Marin knew that there was a Tara lead zinc mine in the northwest of Dublin, Ireland, with huge reserves. Unfortunately, the huge lead zinc mine happened to be in the direct territory of the King of England under the rule of Henry VII. With Henry VII's treacherous character, would he allow himself to mine and smelt zinc? You know, because he was jealous of the profits and taxes of the wool textile industry, Henry VII was desperate to suppress wool exports and set up a wool textile factory himself. Therefore, if he knew that there was a huge lead zinc mine in his index territory, even if he had given it to himself before, with his rogue character, he would take it back. Apart from anything else, just a large lead mine is enough to make Henry VII turn his face shamelessly behind his heels. And if the city gate is tinned, it would be a good choice. After all, tinplate is also rust-proof. However, tinplate has a fatal flaw: once the tin coating is worn out, it will soon spread rust around the worn point. And it is inevitable that the city gate will bump into each other. Therefore, using tin plating to solve the problem will also be problematic. The best solution is galvanizing. In fact, if it is to prevent artillery bombardment, there is no need to use pure cast iron city gates at all. It is enough to cover the city gates with thick iron sheets or iron plates. After all, it is difficult to smash the city gates covered with thick iron sheets or iron plates with iron balls. The reason why Marin replaced the 3 cities with pure iron cast iron gates was that he was led into a ditch by the Danes. Later, in the test, Marin found that using a thicker iron sheet or iron plate than ordinary iron sheets to cover the oak city gates can also resist artillery bombardment. Moreover, there is another advantage that cast iron city gates do not have, that is, it is easy to replace. Now the pure cast iron gates used by Marin in cities such as Denmark, Hamburg, and Lübeck, if one piece is rusted, it will be miserable. The whole gate will lose its function and need to be replaced as a whole. If you use the method of nailing thick iron sheets or iron plates, even if a piece of thick iron sheets or iron plates is broken, you just need to take down the rusted iron plate and replace it with a new one. However, whether it is thick iron or iron plate, it has the same disadvantage as cast iron gates: it is easy to rust. Before, it is not that no European city has covered the city gate with iron, but in the end, they chose to give up because of the problem of rust. In the contemporary China and other parts of East Asia, there are ways to use thick copper sheets to enhance the solidity of the city gate. However, that is East Asia. In East Asia, one tael of silver can be exchanged for 1,000 copper coins or more. In Europe, one silver coin can only be exchanged for 15 copper coins of the same size. Therefore, considering the cost, ordinary countries do not have the economic strength to cover the city gate with copper. Even for a local tyrant like Marin, it is okay to cover the 4 city gates of Auric with copper, but to cover the city gates of other cities with copper? Forget it. 15 pieces of iron are equivalent to a piece of silver of the same size. Who can be so extravagant as to cover several city gates with copper? Therefore, after thinking about it, it is still the most economical and effective way to cover the oak city gate with galvanized tin. The only question now is, where does the zinc come from? So, Marin had to turn his attention to the Tara lead zinc mine in Ireland. Although the Tara mine is in the territory of the old fox Henry VII. However, the island of Ireland is not dominated by Henry VII at this time. You know, Marin helped Earl Edward of the York family to go to the island of Ireland and control Cork, the first good port on the island of Ireland. Not only that, Earl Edward has 5,000 mercenaries around him. After thinking again and again, Marin decided to start supporting Earl Edward and let him make trouble on the island of Ireland. Even, support Earl Edward to unify the island of Ireland. When Earl Edward took over the only direct territory of England on the island of Ireland, Dublin and surrounding areas, Marin could buy the Tara mine from Earl Edward in the name of the North Sea Chamber of Commerce, which saved his life. Then, the excavated lead and zinc ore was pulled to other places to extract zinc. Earl Edward's financial strength was far behind Henry VII, who controlled England. Therefore, after Earl Edward occupied the British Crown's territory near Dublin, he must have needed funds to prepare for war and guard against Henry VII's counterattack. Therefore, Edward must have been very short of money at that time. At that time, he would come forward in the name of the North Sea Chamber of Commerce and would not have trouble buying the number 1 lead and zinc mine in Europe. Chapter 180: The situation in Ireland. As early as 2 years ago, Marin gave Cork, an important port in southern Ireland, to Earl Edward, so that Earl Edward and his 5,000 troops would have a place to stay, so as not to be used as cannon fodder by Louis XII to attack Calais. With the secret help of the North Sea Chamber of Commerce under Marin, Earl Edward quietly moved to Cork, Ireland with 5,000 troops. Louis XII was very annoyed by Earl Edward's departure, but he was busy fighting for hegemony in Italy and had no time to pay attention to Edward. Moreover, Edward explained that he wanted to establish a logistics base in Cork as a rear base for attacking Britain. Although Louis XII was dissatisfied, he felt that Earl Edward, as the only male heir of the York family and the only contender for the throne of Henry VII, still needed support. Therefore, later Louis XII chose to provide a certain amount of money and food so that Earl Edward could afford 5,000 troops. As for King James IV of Scotland, he was very welcome to Earl Edward's move to Ireland. Therefore, the Kingdom of Scotland's support for Earl Edward was no less than that of France. After arriving in Cork, Earl Edward and his army caused panic to Maurice Fitzgerald, Earl of Desmond, which was next to Cork. You know, the Earl of Desmond, as a major force on the island of Ireland, only had 3,000 or 4,000 soldiers. So, taking advantage of the fact that Earl Edward was not yet firmly established, the Earl of Desmond launched an attack. But Earl Edward's troops were not weak to begin with, and with the solid city of Cork as a support, he managed to defend the city and train his troops. Later, seeing that he could not defeat Earl Edward's army, Earl Desmond Maurice Fitzgerald changed to forming an alliance and winning over. Edward needed the support of his allies just because he was not yet firmly established. So, the two sides came together. Later, in early 1502, Maurice Fitzgerald used the army of Earl Edward to form a huge coalition of up to 7,000 people, conquered the Kingdom of Desmond, the continuation of the Kingdom of Munster, southwest of the Earldom of Desmond, and eliminated the McCarthy family, the royal descendants of the Kingdom of Munster before the invasion of England. The Desmond region in the southwest of the island of Ireland, that is, the southwest of the Kingdom of Munster, has been divided into two parts for a long time since the establishment of the Earldom of Desmond. One part is the earldom of Desmond established by the invading English nobles, which occupies most of the area. But in some areas at the southwestern end of the island of Ireland, it has been occupied by the Kingdom of Desmond established by the descendants of the Kingdom of Munster. The earldom of Desmond attacked many times, but they were stubbornly resisted by the McCarthy royal family. But this time, after winning over the army brought by Earl Edward, the earldom of Desmond finally took it down in one fell swoop and eliminated the country established by the indigenous Irish. Afterwards, the two families divided up the Kingdom of Desmond, and the County of Desmond obtained most of the territory in the north. Earl Edward, on the other hand, obtained a small part of the coastal area. Although Earl Edward was slightly dissatisfied with this, he temporarily endured it because it was the home ground of the County of Desmond. After all, his biggest enemy was Henry VII, not Maurice Fitzgerald. If possible, Edward would like to win over the other party. The current island of Ireland can be said to be torn apart. Although Britain invaded the island of Ireland, because it could not manage the mainland, its control over the island of Ireland was also very low. The United Kingdom had to wait until the reign of James I, the monarch of the Stuart dynasty, to truly control the island of Ireland. In 1609, it sent a large army to completely conquer the entire island of Ireland. At present, the distribution of power on the island of Ireland is very complicated. In addition to the direct territories of the British King composed of Dublin and nearby areas, there are three major counties on the island of Ireland: the Earldom of Kildare, the Earldom of Ormond and the Earldom of Desmond. These three counties were the first batch of Norman nobles who were granted fiefdoms because of their military exploits during the Norman invasion. Later, because England did not pay attention to Ireland for a long time, these three counties were actually very autonomous and independent internally. Their situation was somewhat like that of the German principalities, with a high degree of autonomy. Later, Britain's rule over Ireland was long managed by the earls of these three counties, who were responsible for extorting tributes from other local forces on the island of Ireland and presenting them to the King of England. Even the direct territories of the British King in the east, including Dublin, were long managed by the three earls. The King of England was only responsible for collecting taxes from the territory, and management was delegated to the three earls. It can be said that the real managers on the island of Ireland are these three earls. However, since Henry VII established the Tudor dynasty in 1485, the practice of the three earls jointly managing Ireland has been changed. Instead, the Earl of Kildare was appointed as the governor of the island of Ireland, and the Earl of Kildare Gerald Fitzgerald was in power alone to control the island of Ireland. This caused strong dissatisfaction among the two traditional powerful countries, the Earldom of Desmond and the Earldom of Ormond, because their power was gone. Therefore, when the fake Richard Perkin Warbeck occupied Cork City and used it as a base to oppose Henry VII, the Earl of Desmond Maurice Fitzgerald gave a lot of support to support the fake Richard to overthrow Henry VII. Of course, the fake Richard failed in the end and was beheaded. But the separation of Maurice Fitzgerald and the Tudor dynasty has become a fact. Of course, because the island of Ireland was too remote at the time, and Cork City had long been declared a free trade city by the British royal family, it was no longer under the jurisdiction of the Earldom of Desmond. Therefore, Henry VII was not very clear about the issue of Maurice Fitzgerald. In other words, even if he understood, there was no evidence to prove that Maurice Fitzgerald supported the fake Richard. Because Cork City does not belong to the County of Desmond. Speaking of which, the County of Desmond and the County of Kildare are from the same family, the Fitzgerald family. However, hundreds of years have passed since the Norman conquest. The previous family affection is no longer there. Because of jealousy of the Earl of Kildare's monopoly of power, the County of Desmond and the County of Kildare are already hostile to each other. On the other hand, Thomas Butler, Earl of Ormond, although dissatisfied with the seizure of power, has not yet developed a rebellious intention like Maurice Fitzgerald. However, it is unlikely to expect the County of Ormond to continue to be loyal. At least, it will not be loyal to Henry VII, who deprived the Earl of Ormond of his power. Of course, in addition to the three major counties, there are two counties on the island of Ireland that were appointed by the King of England, the County of Wexford on the southeast coast of the island of Ireland and the County of Ulster on the northeast coast of the island of Ireland. However, these two counties are relatively small and have little say in politics. In addition, most areas on the island of Ireland are still controlled by various countries established by local forces. For example, the Kingdom of Desmond, which was previously destroyed by the County of Desmond and Earl Edward, was a small regime established by the royal descendants of the Kingdom of Munster in Ireland before the Norman invasion. Most of the northern and western parts of the island of Ireland are still under the control of small local forces. Although they are divided, once the English want to expand, those local forces will still unite to resist. Therefore, the three major counties were unable to continue to expand. However, the McCarthy dynasty, located at the southwest end of the island of Ireland, had no small local countries nearby to ally with it. Therefore, when it was besieged by the county of Desmond and Edward's army, no one came to rescue it, and it could only be destroyed in this way.